Welcome, Eve. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I just want to start off by saying, um, or asking the question, what is your holistic art praxis? Like what do you hope to accomplish with Evolve, Revolt, Repeat, from an education standpoint, from a performance standpoint? Like, what is your whole goal?
The brand actually came out of my classroom. Before I got into working as, arts admin, arts leader, I was an arts teacher. And how education works in school systems, supplies was always like, I'm pulling stuff from here. I'm trying to reuse materials, upcycling, recycling things all the time. And I had a group. I was teaching high school, and I had a all female um, division. So, like homeroom. And my girls were like, oh, it's the end of the year. Like, Miss Sanford, teach us how to make like tie-dye, like little booty shorts, because they're high school girls and this is what they want. And so we did this project. I took them on a little field trip to the thrift store. We got stuff. It's the end of the school, last 2 weeks of school, we're like making little denim shorts and stuff for them for the summer. And I had all this material like left over. And I just started like cutting up the material and like playing around with it. Made myself a pair of earrings, which turned into like 10 pairs of earrings. And then people were like, oh, those are cute. Those are cool. And that's just kind of how the brand evolved. Like me, kind of being inspired by my students, and then being inspired by like customers or folks that were interested in what I was doing. And then each design kind of evolving through, art that I was looking at or textiles that I found or whatever. It just kind of evolved naturally into itself, right, from there. And for me, just like after leaving teaching and moving more, going to grad school, moving into a more admin space where I'm kind of further away from art making myself, the brand has just been a moment for me to continue to explore creating. It connects me just to that practice, and just centers me in the work that I'm doing now as more of an arts advocate and, a leader in this institution and a person who hires creatives and gets creatives resources. It just connects me to the practice so that I'm not just like living my life as an admin and not in tune with what it still feels like to make things.
So often art needs to be spontaneous and reactive, and I think that's a really beautiful lineage of how you took this thing that just kind of fell into your lap and turned it into like
A business.
well, yeah, a business, well, and a philosophy too,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. Speaking of that, you came from Chicago's Fine Art School. You got your master's here in Seattle as a teacher, but also as an admin. How do you translate or like use that skill set and that experience to affect the art and the art practice that you're doing?
I've kind of been very upfront and blunt about my transition to Seattle, not always being like the cutest. But for me, it was an extremely rough transition into an admin space, or just even honestly like a space that I could work, right, with all the things that I was coming to the table. Like I've worked in the arts my entire life. Like my resume is filled with nothing but arts experience. And there was maybe a year and a half where I couldn't get hired for the life of me because no one knew me, right? So like no one could vouch that like everything that was there was true.
Right.
And I would say that has been a very Seattle experience. Even now, like as I've moved kind of up in the world, still people, I think, look to have me co-signed or look to have folks in general co-signed by someone that they know. Um, and that was a completely new experience for me. Now, granted, I was, born and raised in Chicago, and so my roots in the arts and community were a little bit deeper, and folks did know me, but I definitely navigated new spaces where I don't feel like I had those same type of barriers where folks didn't trust me. I try my best now as someone who's in a director role to open as many doors as possible, right? I'm like, I'm reading through your resume. I'm going to give you a call. I'm going to give you that interview. I'm willing to listen to your story and give you a shot. It doesn't mean that they're not valid because you don't know them, right? Or you haven't heard their name. So I think that's probably like the biggest thing for me in terms of like what I'm doing now and how that transition kind of impacted the work that I'm doing.
When I look at some of your work, especially the jewelry and like the headdresses, I'm thinking of like stuff that's coming from an ancient place, stuff that's coming from a very traditional place. But your biography says that a lot of your work comes from a very personal lens, from a very autobiographical lens.
Yeah. So I mean, like most things, inspiration kind of comes from all over the place. Like I talked about a little bit earlier, like the initial inspiration came from my students. So like, working in that space. Um, so that's where just how it started with working specifically with the material of denim, right? I think it's a very traditional, like American, I feel like, fabric to work with,
Yeah.
which I think also really interesting because literally all I'm doing to that very traditional American fabric is like bleaching the color out of it, creating my and using it as a canvas to do my own thing. Yeah. Right. And I think in many ways that's really like a metaphor for my existence, like as a Black creative, like taking my life and whatever opportunities that I have and like tearing them up. You know what I mean? Tearing up the systems that I, have to navigate and kind of making my own space and making it beautiful in my own way, making it work for me. Also, everything that I'm using is like upcycled, recycled. I'm not buying new materials, right? I'm using, my dad's old jeans, a lot of my dad's old work jeans. Yeah, so I'm using, my family's things, right, and just making them beautiful. Teaching in Chicago, you hear the news, but how Chicago can be in certain areas, right? And I was trying to figure out how to process the loss of a lot of my students, like a lot of really young people, and I would think a lot about the altars that we would create when somebody is gone, right? Like we put up these fancy balloons and candles and gifts, or we like walk around and we get these like, I don't know, it feels like a very Chicago thing or maybe Midwest thing, like the airbrush t-shirts with like all the like vinyl letters, and it's just like rhinestoned out, and it's like this beautiful expression of this person, right? And I was like, wouldn't it be dope if like we got that while we were walking around? Like if I didn't wait until the traumatic loss of a student to like put something on that represents how beautiful that they are, or give them something that they could see personally and wear themselves that represents like how they inspire me, or how I think that they are strong or capable. And so that's how I really think about the jewelry. Like that's why it's really elaborate and like detailed and like feels special. And even the visors like feels like this ethereal, like spiritual being. Like I want you to walk around while you're living and breathing, having that sense of like royalty, or like
yes,
or like that connection to like the God within yourself, right? As opposed to just when you're in the spirit realm or whatever. Like who knows what that is like once you're gone? You don't. But like, what does it mean to kind of tap into that and like navigate the world as this, I don't know, celestial being? And that's kind of where those visors come from. I don't want to wait until like some special occasion. Every day that I get to wake up is a special occasion that I need to just like wake up and flex, like yeah.
That gives me goosebumps. That's really beautiful. Final question. Being an arts practitioner, being an arts facilitator, being an arts educator, for those out there, what inspiring words, and not even for like people that want to be artists, but I think one of the things that Black and Tan Hall is trying to inspire is that like we all have creative sensibility, and we all have power to to be creative, or to be expressive. What's some parting words, or like just something to get us through this season and this time of tumult right now, in terms of like your message of evolve, revolting, and repeating.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, it's in the name, right? And so evolve is, continue to grow, right? Like learn new things. And that's how I look at life. That's how I look at the brand and everything. Revolt for me is just like, don't get stuck. So like continue, of course, to grow, but don't just find one path and get stuck in that zone and never branch out. So like learn something, but also like don't be afraid to revolt against that that thing that you learned and you thought was sacred, right? Don't be afraid to step outside of that box and try something new. And then of course repeat. Grow and change and grow and change.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, listen, Eve, thank you so much for spending time with us. For all you guys out there watching, her website is evolverevoltrepeat.com. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your work and your art.
No, thank you for having me, man. This is dope.
Cool.